Hello and welcome to the Comic Conspiracy, episode 430 for the week of December 3rd, 2019. My name is Ryan Higgins, who's here with me this week.
Brock Sager.
Kevin.
And Charlie.
That would be Toby for first-time listeners. Before we get into, well, we don't really have a regular episode this week. We have another interview with Sam Hamm, the writer, screenwriter, and story. What's the best way to? Story and script.
Story developer and script writer.
Just call writer.
The writer of the 1989 Tim Burton Batman movie. It's an incredible honor to be able to talk to him. This is Batman's 30th anniversary of the Batman movie, and we've talked about it a few times through the year here. Obviously, all of us are very, very big fans of this movie.
Yeah, on our movie episode last year, multiple people at the table cited that as a favorite.
Yeah. And we do mention a couple times during the interview, but the influence of that movie, I think, could be felt to today in everything from the CW shows to the MCU. I really think a lot of what comic book movies became, that was such the starting point for so much of it. I mean, Batman Mania gripped the country like nothing else to that point.
That Bat logo, that
everywhere.
Black and yellow,
everywhere.
is still today one of the biggest merchandising Bat logos ever.
Yeah, everyone knows that Batman symbol. That movie was obviously incredible. So we got a big nice long interview here. We're gonna do that. We're going to see you on the other side. We got a couple Patreon questions to round out the episode, not too much. So we're gonna head off to Gotham City now. Enjoy the interview.
So right now we're joined by screenwriter Sam Hamm, celebrating the 30th anniversary of a movie that everybody will know the title of. Most working screenwriters would be thrilled to get their name on the screen for one project, but if it turns out to be one of the biggest box office hits of a decade, called Batman, and I'm speaking of the 1989 Tim Burton, Michael Keaton, Jack Nicholson joint. Sam, thanks for joining us.
My great pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So before we get into reminiscing about the movie, we're going to just start off with what we ask all the guests is, could you kind of walk us through your secret origin as a comic book fan/reader? Where you picked up this dirty hobby of ours?
I truthfully cannot remember a time when I was not a comic book reader. I do remember my first comic book. I was visiting my mom's uncle in Louisville, Kentucky, and we went to a local drugstore or convenience store or whatever it was. I forget forget where exactly it was, but he bought me a 10-cent Mighty Mouse comic, and I was 3 years old at the time. And the cover of this issue, researchers can go back and probably find it online if they want to. There was a cat aviator who was flying an airplane, and Mighty Mouse had just plowed through the fuselage on the cover. And so, I started reading superhero comics at the age of 3, but the superhero in this particular case happened to be a mouse. I migrated over to DC very quickly. And, the good news is I was around for most of the first issues of Marvel Comics. And so I think I have, or had at one point or another, all of the Marvel hero introductions except for Fantastic Four. I've never owned a copy of Fantastic Four #1. And, that is my sole regret as a comic book collector.
That's not a bad regret.
But you were there for the birth of the Marvel age, essentially.
Yeah, I started reading Marvel comics when I think they were still Atlas at that point. And they had Amazing Adventures and Amazing Fantasy. When Amazing Adventures became Amazing Fantasy, and there were Tales to Astonish. and Journey into Mystery, and they were publishing, sort of weird fiction tales. It was before I was reading and collecting the Marvel comics before they went over to superheroes.
So all the horrors, all the giant monsters and the romance books and westerns.
Exactly.
And, yeah.
The one I remember, there's a Jack Kirby cover which says something like, God help me, there is and the title of the story is Monster at My Window. And there's a guy on the, in the corner of an apartment building, and he's like sitting at his typewriter and he's looking out the window in horror, and there's this enormous critter standing outside on the ledge. So.
Now, did you continue to read into high school, college, past those early days, or what was your kind of comic reading like as you got older?
Yeah, I was a dedicated collector of both Marvel and DC, all through elementary school, probably most of high school, and well into college. And then I had a stretch where I felt like I was sort of grown up and I have to put childish things behind me. And boy, was I relieved when I jumped onto the Batman project and I had an excuse to go back and start buying up all the comics that I'd missed over that 5 or 10 year stretch.
So before we get to the movie, I mean, that is a kind of a point that I wanted to hit. So were you reading? You weren't really reading too much at the time when you started working on Batman, but that let you kind of go back into it.
No, exactly right. No, I was not up to speed on what was happening in comics at the time that I began writing Batman, but I was sort of completely saturated with the mythos. Right. Of the comics when I came to it, and so if I were having a conversation, I was able to at least fake the. I was able to at least pretend, that I was quite knowledgeable about the subject, and it was great for me because it was a time of extreme ferment in the comic book industry. Frank Miller was doing The Dark Knight when we first started talking about this project, and I think when Tim and I first got together to talk about doing the Batman movie, I think the first 2 issues of Dark Knight Returns had been published, and they'd been written up in Rolling Stone, and there was all this talk about there's a left-wing Superman versus a right-wing Batman, and so forth and so on. And there was just a huge sort of interest in comic books that had not existed back when I used to read them, and it was a nerdy pursuit. And so it was great fun for me to kind of dig this stuff out. And the big perk of working on a movie of a character is that you get to see stats of the upcoming comic books in advance.
Nice. So,
we got to see the end of Dark Knight Returns before it was published on the newsstands.
Wow.
And, that to me was, that's the 2 greatest things about working on Batman for me were, number 1, probably meeting Prince.
We'll ask you questions about that later.
You can ask me about that later.
Ryan's a huge Tim Burton fan,
and number two was getting to see the end of the Frank Miller series before it was actually published. Yeah.
So before that point, when you're rapidly catching up, what was your relationship with Batman as a kid, as a teenager, as a reader, or the old TV show?
Well, my relationship with Batman, he would never let me out of the trunk of the Batmobile, and I resented that. You mean my metaphorical?
The fictional Batman.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Gotcha. No, I was a religious viewer of the Batman TV show. I read the comics. I remember sort of, having this, weird shock when I went to the store and bought the new issue of Batman, and he had a little yellow circle around the bat insignia on his chest. And that, of course, was when that happened in 1964. 4, I think, when Julius Schwartz took over the comic book and decided that he wanted to sort of announce that it was a new era of Batman. And Carmine Infantino, who I already knew and loved from The Flash, took over as the main artist on Batman. And it was shortly after that the TV series came on. And I was about 10 when that happened, which dates me terribly. But the thing I remember is that all the kids in my neighborhood who were big Batman fans were completely shocked when, after the first few episodes of Batman, after the first, I guess it was a half season when it first came on, because I think it premiered in the spring. But it was nominated for an Emmy for Best Comedy Series. And we saw this in the newspaper. We were all going like, what? Best Comedy Series? It's Batman. What do they mean by that? It's not a comedy series. It's like heroes and supervillains and so forth and so on. And we couldn't figure it out. And so then we decided, okay, yeah, we have to kind of be sophisticated. So yeah, okay, it's sort of funny. But I think of that as one of the moments when I was inducted unwillingly into adulthood, and seeing that the larger world regarded all the stuff that I loved and just gobbled up as a kid was actually kind of childish. And I've said this many times in the past, but I kind of think that the fan reaction against the camp version of Batman that appeared on the mid '60s TV series, the irritation was not with the fact that the treatment was camp, but the irritation was with the fact that the treatment was so close to what you were seeing in the comic books at the time. Because the comic books were a lot of biff, bam, pow. The comic books were, they'd run out of ideas by this point. I mean, they'd been doing Batman for 25 years. And so it was all Batman and Robin turn into Vikings, or, Batman and Robin fight a pink alien from Mars, or, Batman is somehow transformed into a baby. And yet, even as a baby, he continues to fight crime and take out villains.
Of course.
Yeah, naturally, yeah, because he's just that good. And so there was a real sort of silliness to the comic books until that point when Julius Schwartz took over. And 5 years later, you had Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams taking over the character, and so it became much darker. Went back to the original dark roots of Batman, who was a vigilante who carried a gun, in his first few comic episodes, and they tried to take the character away from the camp TV series and back to its darker roots. And I was very sympathetic to that project.
Well, I think, after the 60s Batman TV show, I know a lot of people, I think once, Dark Knight came out and a lot of the 80s Batman stuff, I know a lot of the fandom was sort of against the 60s show, but I actually really like that people have sort of, it's kind of come back around, where I think people respect it and can watch it and understand it for what it was today. It seemed like a lot of people hated it for a long time, but I don't get that sentiment anymore from people. Most people I know really like it. It's different, right? It's very different than what Batman is today, but there's still a respect for it that I think wasn't around.
Yeah, I love the fact that people embrace it. And one of the guys that I admire most as a writer is Lorenzo Semple Jr. And he was the creator of the Batman series. He's the guy who set the tone, and decided how they were going to do it. And he did a bunch of remarkable work. I mean, he wrote a couple of my favorite movies, and they're very subversive and very clever movies. Pretty Poison and The Parallax View, and he later went on and did the Dino De Laurentiis King Kong and Flash Gordon and the unauthorized Sean Connery James Bond.
Right.
Never Say Never Again. but the kind of smaller pictures that he did right after he was working on Batman are just extraordinary. I mean, they're models of how you can write sort of interesting and iconoclastic stuff when nobody's looking.
Well, going into the 80s there for your comic reading, I mean, it must have been pretty big shock having been gone from comics. Then you come back and it's Watchmen and Dark Knight and Swamp Thing and all these things have come out kind of in your absence. So did you kind of catch up on a lot of that stuff outside the Batman books, or were you pretty much?
Yeah, no, I tried to. I went in through the Batman books, and as you guys know how this works. As soon as you begin, finding somebody whose stuff really interests you, you go and track that down, and that leads you to something else.
Sure.
And that leads you to something else. And, pretty soon you're out buying, 15 or 20 comics every time you go into the comic store. And, I will tell you, one of the most horrific experiences of my childhood was when the prices of comics went up. And I am old enough to remember when they went from 10 cents to 12 cents, and that was a huge dent in my budget. And, the real nightmare, I used to be able to buy 8 comics for $1 because I had a $1 allowance when I was a kid. And I could go in and buy 8 12-cent comics, and it would come to 96 cents. And then there was this month in which the comics all went up from 12 to 15, and suddenly I could only buy 6 comics with my allowance, and it was just it was nightmarish. It was awful, and so you can imagine my shock when I went back into buying comics as an adult, and I discovered they were costing like $5.99 for one issue. I mean, I was just trying to figure out how kids could buy comics when they cost, $3.99, $4.99. It seemed to me to violate the seemed to me to violate the social compact, that comics should be dirty, cheap, and printed on bad paper.
Well,
and I have to admit, I really kind of understood, like, holy cow, you can do like painted pages here. You can do like, computerized colors. They looked so much better than anything I'd ever bought when I was a kid.
Right.
But still, dang, that's a significant cash outlay.
They never stop going up in price. I tell people that all the time, and people love to complain, and then they just keep buying them.
So if we transition into the movie, what I'm wondering, I'm going to guesstimate the year here, Sam, so you correct as memory serves. 86? If it comes out in 89, would 86 be about right?
You are correct, sir. That was a good guess.
So what does your writing life, your professional life look like when you get the call or you make the call that gets you involved in Batman? What were you doing at the moment right before that?
I crawled on my belly for 6 months to get the Batman assignment. I got to tell you, I had written a spec screenplay, which is a comedy called Pulitzer Prize, and it got into a bidding war. Sally Field was attached to it for about 4 days, and I mean that literally. I mean, she said she wanted to do it on Monday, and decided she didn't want to do it on Friday. And she had just won the Academy Award a year before for Places in the Heart. And so there were all these studios that really, really liked her, as she said in her acceptance speech, and became suddenly interested in this script that she had found. And when she dropped out, there were only a couple of studios that were still interested in pursuing it, but the 2 finalists were Warner Brothers and Columbia. And my agent, being a canny guy, sold the script to Columbia and then went back to Warner Brothers and said, why don't you guys, we could do an overall deal with Sam if you want to, because he's going to do this other screenplay over here. But if you guys wanted to give him some, advance money, we could certainly do a couple of scripts with you as well. And so that is how it worked out. And I had made friends with an executive called Bonnie Lee, who was she was great. We became very good friends, and we shared a lot of enthusiasms. And one day when I was waiting to go in to talk to her on a story conference, she got stuck on a phone call. She was putting out some kind of fire with something that was happening at the studio, and I saw on her shelf. And you have to imagine this. This is back in the day when screenplays were printed out. And so if you go into an executive's office, there's a huge bookcase, and the bookcase has, 7 or 8 shelves, and the shelves are all full of the scripts that are currently in development. And there will be, 5 copies of some, and there will be 12 copies of others. And I pulled down a copy of a script that I saw. It was called Batman. And I thought, holy cow, Batman. Well, I know about Batman. Let me see what's going on here. And so I had about, 20 minutes before she was done with her problem and, let me come in for the meeting. And I was reading it. It was a script by Tom Mankiewicz, who had done the Superman movies. And the first thing that I thought when I was reading it was, the structure of the script is really kind of all wrong. He's telling it as if it's Superman, as if you have, a big opening sequence, which is the explosion of Krypton. And as if you need to explain, why this guy is on Earth who is able to leap tall buildings at a single bound, and bullets bounce off him, and he has X-ray vision and all that kind of stuff like that. And I thought there's really nothing like that you need to explain with Batman. And so it's not necessarily a good idea to start out with, here is young boy Bruce Wayne, and his parents get killed, and he teaches himself criminology, and a bat flies in his window, and he sews a costume to look like the bat, and all of this kind of stuff. And as I was reading, I was thinking I would do this an entirely different way. And so I went in to talk to Bonnie about whatever project we were going to discuss, and I said, "What is the status of this Batman thing?" And she said, well, it's been kicking around the studio for a long time, and they don't quite know what to do with it. And there's this guy named Tim Burton who's attached to it. He's just come on it, and he's, they really don't know. And so I was, the more I thought about it, the more I thought I know how to do Batman. And I literally spent about the next 6 months, whenever I went into a meeting with an executive or with, one of the major production companies. I went in to meet Goober Peters at one point because they wanted to talk to me about doing a screenplay from an Arthur C. Clarke book. And, I was a big science fiction fan when I was a kid. And so normally I would jump up and say, yeah, I want to do an Arthur C. Clarke book. But the main thing I wanted to talk to them about was Batman, because they had the rights to Batman. And they said, well, we don't know. There's something going on with Batman, and so forth and so on. And so I basically got Bonnie Lee. I can't remember what I used to blackmail her, but I got her to put me together with Tim Burton at some point, and we hit it off. We got along very well. We didn't talk about Batman. We just, shot the shit. Eventually one day I went into her office and we were talking about whatever project we were working on. And she said, oh, by the way, Tim was saying that he would like you to come over and drop by his office before you leave the lot. And I said, okay, sure. I'm always glad to do that. So I went over to see Tim, and he said, would you have any interest in working on Batman? And I went, I basically wanted to fall prostrate before him and say, oh, thank you. Thank you, sir. Because I had been trying to weasel my way onto this project for literally 6 or 7 months. And he said, I don't know quite how I'd do it. How would you do it? And I just, told him very quickly. I said, okay, we start in the middle. Batman is out here. Nobody quite knows whether he's real or not. We don't do the origin of Batman. We do the origin of the Joker, because, Batman is already here. And the mystery is, who is Batman? Why is this guy Batman? You don't have to explain anything about how is he able to fly. You don't have to explain why do bullets bounce off him. You don't have to do any of that kind of stuff you did with Superman. It's just a crazy guy in a suit. And so, bang, you start with a crazy guy in a suit, and the story of the movie becomes, why is this guy so crazy that he puts on this suit? And goes out to, why is there a rich guy who can basically do whatever he wants to? He can spend his billions however he wants to. He can make Gotham City better. But the only thing that pleases him, the only thing that gratifies him, is putting on a goofy costume and going out and kicking petty criminals around. And so, Tim and I agreed that that's the story of Batman. It's not how does he do all the things he does, it's why does he do all the things he does. And so, bang, I found out a couple of days later that, as far as Warner Brothers was concerned, I was the new screenwriter, and, boom, we were off and running.
That's pretty impressive. Was there a lot of kind of back and forth on the script at that point? I mean, things like the origin of the Joker, even today in comics, they sort of, they shy away from. Take us down the path there of writing a script, especially for something that I'm sure at this point, after the success of the Superman movies, was probably pretty important to Warner Brothers.
I was just trying to. As far as I was concerned, I was trying to sort of respect the canon, and most of my knowledge of Batman villains came from 80-page giants. They used to have those enormous issues that they would put out once or twice a year, where they had an 80-page giant Batman's greatest villains, and so you would see the stories. You would see the origin of the Joker or the Riddler, or my favorite when I was a kid was Gorilla Boss, and Gorilla Boss was Gorilla Boss was a mobster who had his brain transplanted into an ape. And
this is the era when DC Comics had the black and white checkerboard on the top of the covers.
No, this was before.
Or was this before that even?
This is before the go-go checks. Gorilla Boss was a reprint, I think, from the early 50s, and the whole story was built around this character was trying to basically catch and anesthetize Batman so he could steal Batman's brain and put it into the ape and switch his own brain out into Batman. It was in one of those 80-page giants that I read The Man in the Red Hood, which was the sort of semi-official origin story of the Joker, where he gets dropped into the chemical vat and so forth and so on. And so, as far as I was concerned, that's where the Joker came from. And I, came up with a few sort of minor variations on that. For example, he smiles all the time because he's been shot through the face and his facial muscles are paralyzed. To make it sort of, dark and gruesome in the way of in the way of what comic books were becoming in the 1980s. But apart from that, I was trying to go pretty close to what the original story of the Joker's origin was. And, he didn't have an origin until 1951 or 1952, whenever that story was first published. But I like the fact that the Joker keeps getting new origins, in every movie, that he's in. I like the fact that he has multiple origins in, The Dark Knight. I like the fact that he has a whole different origin. He has a Martin Scorsese origin in Joker. I love the idea that you get to work with characters who are sort of at this point in the same league as Sherlock Holmes, because there is a new interpretation of Batman and the Joker every 10 or 15 years. Every generation, basically, you get a whole new take on those characters. And part of the fun for me was that we Tim and I were able to do what was the definitive take for a while, but other people have come along and rethought and rebooted and reimagined the same stories that we were telling. I mean, I find that to me is very pleasing.
So I'm just curious, especially in the early development for the movie, was there any kind of discussion or pushback on sort of embracing the darkness that was kind of taking over comic books at the time, especially since up until that time you had the Adam West show, you had Super Friends, you had all these other kind of sources of Batman that have always taken a lighter tone in sort of the animation and sort of movie kind of world, especially with the success of Superman, which was also sort of a lighter tone.
Well, we thought we were ridiculously fortunate through the early stages of development because everybody liked what we were doing. They had been trying to develop Batman for 7 or 8 years at Warner Brothers. And we were, they had talked about doing an Art Deco period Batman. And they had talked about doing a comedy version of Batman with Bill Murray as Batman and Eddie Murphy as Robin. And, so we came along and said, okay, the way to do the story is just do the story straight. And to me, doing the story straight meant going back to the very, very roots of Batman. Case the Chemical Syndicate starts out with, millionaire Bruce Wayne sitting around and having a cocktail with Commissioner Gordon saying, what about this Batman fellow who is turned up all over town? And then you find out some stuff about this Batman fellow. And it turns out at the end of the story, after Commissioner Gordon leaves to go home for the night, that Bruce Wayne goes into the closet and pulls out his costume. It turns out he is the Batman. And so, that became our structural model. It's like, who is this guy? We introduce Bruce Wayne, and the assumption is, of course, that everybody in the audience knows that Bruce Wayne is Batman, but we wanted to sort of, tease it out and not make it explicit that, these two guys are the same character for as long as we could. And part of the pleasure of telling a story that way is you get from A to C, but not necessarily by way of B. You take kind of a circuitous route to get to the obvious payoff that everybody is waiting for, and then it becomes kind of more fun for them because they don't see the twists and turns that are delivering them to the point that they've been expecting to go to all along. It was to us it was really kind of fun to think of what kind of world would produce this character and what it would be like to be him. One of the things that you don't ever think about in terms of superheroes, and one of the things that I sort of credit Stan Lee for, is thinking about what are the everyday problems of being a superhero. What if you, how does this, for example, Bruce Wayne is supposed to be a millionaire playboy. Okay, he goes out at night and he fights crime. How does that affect his love life? And to me, it all comes back to reading Marvel comics when I was a kid. And, one of my seminal experiences was in Fantastic Four number 8 or 9. I think it was number 8. It turns out that Reed has blown all the Fantastic Four's savings in the stock market. And they're going to have to vacate the Baxter Building. So the superheroes are being thrown out of their own headquarters so they can't make the rent. And I read that. I thought, oh my gosh, superheroes have to make the rent. It's like, it just was, my brain melted And so I tried to come to Batman with that approach. And, the deal with Batman is that he has kind of made a bad choice. He's decided that he wants to go out and fight crime. He wants to he kind of wants to reenact his boyhood trauma over and over, where these criminals came up and they killed his parents, and he was a tiny kid and he wasn't able to stop them. And so now he wants to go out and stop them for everybody else. And that's kind of it's simultaneously kind of a dark thing, and it's kind of a silly thing, because it basically means that, Batman has never had to cut his losses and grow up. He didn't have somebody saying, like, okay, Master Bruce, you have all these assets at your disposal. You must figure out how to live a happy life. You must figure out how to, do good for others. You must figure out how to, et cetera, et cetera. What he had instead was Alfred, who I think is, the great monster of the Batman universe. His only moral guide is a guy that he can fire anytime when he wants to, because he's the family butler. If Alfred were to say, well, no, Master Bruce, I don't think it's a good idea that you should go out and fight crime on the streets, he can say, you're fired, Alfred. And he said, well, in that case, Master Bruce, yes, can I help you design a utility belt? Can I suggest you carry a few extra batarangs just in case you need them? So it was the big challenge was trying to walk the tightrope between what's dark and what's comic about the character, because we always thought of it as a story of a guy who had made a crazy choice and started to go sane. Batman meets Vicky, and all of a sudden here's this woman who seems sort of simpatico, and she kind of understands him, and he starts to think, like, wow, could I have a normal life with this person who kind of gets my problems and sort of sees what I'm doing? And so he begins to sort of question his whole enterprise. And I had a friend who had been a former Warner Brothers executive who called me up shortly after seeing the movie and said, wow, that was so great. I mean, who had an idea that you can make a movie about Batman and it would actually be about Batman's problems? And, I thought, okay, great. That is the nicest compliment that I've, gotten on this movie. That's somebody who actually understood what the movie was about. But in answer to your question, which was about, 9 minutes ago now, the answer is yes. We got complaints about the movie being too dark, but not until we had gotten up to the very sort of top brass of Warner Brothers, because everybody had been on board with what we were doing up until we got to the very top guys, who were at that point Bob Daly and Terry Simmel, and both extremely smart guys. They were the corporate heads of Warner Brothers, and they were the first people who read the script who brought up a bunch of questions that we had been expecting all along. Like, number one, isn't Batman basically a vigilante? It seems like, in this movie he's almost a vigilante. And, we had to say, well, yeah, is kind of like, that's
his whole deal.
Yeah. As many times in the TV series as they show, Batman going in and shaking hands with Commissioner Gordon. Yeah. Batman is kind of a vigilante.
Love that red phone.
And yeah. And the fact is, in my drafts of the script, the cops always hated Batman. There's a scene at the end of the movie, which is not my scene at all, but where, Commissioner Gordon says, Batman has given us this bat signal, which we're going to shine up in the sky whenever we need a helping hand. And, I thought, that's all right. That's political suicide. As soon as you have the police commissioner saying, oh yeah, we're going to call in this masked vigilante when we can't figure out how to wipe our own asses. That's not going to fly with the people of Gotham City. But we got those questions about aren't there people who die in this version of the script, and we said, yeah, there are people who die because the Joker, he's a crazy psychopath. He is actually killing people, and that's one of the reasons why Batman has to stop him. And there was Tim and I both had this moment of we felt a chill on our hearts when we were having this conversation, because we knew we were sort of at the make or break moment, and they were either going to go with a darker Batman, or they were going to say, no, you have to go back and make it lighthearted and fun and take all the dark stuff out. And luckily they went with the darker Batman, and the reason I say darker is because the movie today looks so tame compared to where the franchise went later with Christopher Nolan movies. And
right,
yeah,
if we felt like we could have done that kind of material, yeah, we would have jumped on it at the time. But it was unthinkable. There had never been a comic book movie at the point that we came along that had been that adult. And I don't know any other way to phrase it. I don't think it's necessarily. I don't think adult is necessarily the right word, but there had never been a movie that was that kind of dark and violent and.
Well, Batman was really the stepping stone, I think, for the massive change in the perception, because after Batman, you had so many movies that tried to kind of emulate it. A lot of the independent comic stuff like Tank Girl and Judge Dredd and a lot of that stuff in the 90s. And I think everyone will look at Batman as sort of, it led to the Dark Knight and the MCU and all the stuff that came after. If Batman wasn't this big success, I don't know that other stuff would have happened quite the same way. Right? I mean, it was, Superman obviously was serious, but it was a much more lighter in tone, and there was a big history of Superman films and TV, and other properties with Superman. I feel like Batman was a big risk, and it let them do the darker material.
Well, the other thing that came along, and it was 12, 13 years after Batman, is that CGI basically changed what you could put on screen. Superhero movies changed because of what you could actually show. And there would be no way to do, Fantastic Four without it looking completely shitty, as it did in the cheap Roger Corman version.
Yeah,
exactly.
They tried.
Yeah, exactly. They did their darndest. They did the best you could do on $1 million. But when I remember sitting in Spider-Man 2. And there's a sequence where Dr. Octopus, Alfred Molina, is crawling up the side of a building to have a fight with Spider-Man. And I thought, man, if I'm Stan Lee and I'm sitting in the theater now, I could die happy. I have just because I remember when I was a kid thinking that, wow, you could never. I would read comic books and I think, wow, wouldn't it be great if you could have a movie this? And I knew even then that you could never put that stuff on screen because there was no way to do the special effects. There was no way to photograph the stuff that happens in comic books in a way that would look, anything other than ridiculous and shitty on screen.
Yeah.
And boom, 10 years after Batman, that way of filming things, that way of design, it's basically animation. Movies, action movies now are just, to a large extent they're animated movies. And when the ability came along to recreate a Jack Kirby panel, on screen, a Jack Kirby action sequence, then it kind of had to happen. I don't know how else to put it. As soon as the technology came along, somebody was going to realize, holy cow, now I can recreate on screen, in motion, in real time, the stuff that I used to imagine when I was looking at a Wally Wood page or a Jack Kirby page or a John Buscema page, and kind of took over the world.
Yeah, I think Star Wars really pushed the limit, right, on what they could do for the practical effects and map painting and the effects on Star Wars are obviously mind blowing.
Yeah.
But you still just had regular humans in costumes, and there was, a superhero was the next level. We always have some movies and TV, just random stuff playing here at the store. And Captain America Civil War is on right now when we're watching Captain America throw his shield across a battlefield, hitting 10 people, right? They've tried to do that back in the 70s and 80s. It just didn't quite work, not like it does today.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, and, the other failed Marvel adaptation is the Captain America adaptation with J.D. Salinger's kid Matt in the role of Captain America.
Weird movie.
Strange movie. Yes.
Well, I like for me, the Batman came out when I was 10, and it was.
I ought to slap you right now.
Sam, there are a lot of reasons you should do that. Not the age is just one on the list.
That's who I am.
There's nothing I hate worse than going into a meeting with a studio executive who says, "Oh, I saw Batman because I love Batman. My mom took all of my friends and me to see it for my 8th birthday." It's like.
But I think that for me as a kid, I got to see this movie that was something that was connected to, because I remember watching reruns of the Adam West stuff on TV. And just reading some of the comics here and there. But it was kind of something that kind of took all that stuff that I enjoyed and made it feel like it was something like not necessarily adult, but it combined a lot of stuff that, I enjoyed personally as a kid and also as, somebody who's growing up and, coming into what he wants to enjoy. Well, so you have... because it's a dark. You have all this dark, gritty stuff, but then there's so much fun and comedic, like beats in the movie that you guys put in that.
Thank you for saying that. I mean, I consider that a really great compliment because the thing that Tim and I decided going in was that to us the Batman comics were really cool when we were 8. And the Batman TV show was really cool to us when we were 10. And so now how do we figure out a version of Batman that would feel really cool to us now that we're, 29? And, that's exactly what we were trying to do. We're trying to sort of recapture the experience of thinking like, wow, this stuff is really fantastic. But, not in a juvenile way. How do you make that kind of silly, geeky thrill play for a grown up? And, that's what we really sort of dedicated ourselves to trying to figure out.
I know Ryan's dying to ask you about Prince, but real quick before that.
I was going to say, it's a two-part question.
Okay. In the development, I remember a script from back in the day on paper with the 2 gold brads, and I don't know if this was your draft or was a rewritten draft that featured Robin. And what I was going to ask is, as you and Tim were developing this or as you were writing on your own, did you kind of have free reign of what elements of the Batman mythos you could draw from, or was there always, this needs to be the Joker, the Batmobile, etc., or were those all your choices?
Well, I'm going to jump on Kevin's question before you answer that real quick because I had a similar one. And obviously between script and story and the filming and the end project, a lot of stuff gets left on the cutting room floor or not even filmed. And kind of filling in with that as well. Is there stuff that you had in your original script or drafts or story that you had wished made it in the final film?
Oh yeah. Well, the answer is yes to at least 3 of those 4 or 5 questions. The thing with Robin is we'd figured out a whole story and we didn't have Robin in it. We thought, we really want Robin in this thing. It's like, can't we leave Robin for the poor assholes who have to make the sequel? Can't they figure out how to get Robin into the story? Because, we talked about it, and the deal is, Robin is, by the time we were doing it, Robin had been upgraded to about probably a 16-year-old. But when we read Batman comics starting out, Robin was probably like 10 or 11. And we both thought, that's absurd. If he's dressing up some kid to come out and fight crime with him, that's child abuse. Number one, it's a violation of child labor laws because he's probably not he's not paying him enough to come out and fight crime. But, it's also. He has
to go to school the next day.
Yeah, exactly. And it was so absurd to have Robin. And so, we were we thought we were very cagey and we were going to give a script to Warner Brothers didn't have Robin in it. And Warner Brothers told us we had to have Robin. I said, how are you going to work Robin in? And we said, well, we haven't worked Robin in yet. And they said, well, you better work Robin in. And we did our damnedest. I mean, we tried as hard as we could. Tim actually flew up to my house in San Francisco a couple of weekends in a row, and we were just pacing in circles around the floor, digging a rut in the carpet, trying to figure out how we could get Robin in, and we just could not do it. And we decided that we were going to have to call Warner Brothers on Sunday morning, call the execs and say, look, we just haven't been able to do this. Can we just proceed as we were going to? And we'll show you what we've got, and you guys can decide whether it works or not. And just as we were 10 minutes away from making the call, and we said, all right, let's try it one more time. We started pacing around in a circle on the carpet. And I said, what if? And Tim said, yeah, and then what if? And we just started finishing each other's sentences. And miraculously, we came up with this sequence where we could introduce Robin. And it was a whole extended deal where, we'd already set up that there was going to be the Gotham bicentennial celebration. And so his parents were going to be performing, the Flying Graysons were going to be performing as part of this, circus act in the park that they were putting on. And while Batman is chasing the Joker drives his van through the park and he rams the pylon that the Trapeze Act is built on, and causes the death of Dick Grayson's parents. And so Dick Grayson, who is this young gymnast, does a series of swings through the trees and basically lands on the top of the Joker's van. And we had this big sequence built up. And when we got to the actual production of the movie ran considerably over budget. They spent a lot more than they had anticipated spending below the line on the actual production costs. And there was a point about 2/3 of the way through where Warner Brothers said, well, is there anything that we can cut out of this movie? And, everybody went over the script and said, well, we could cut Robin. And so, boom, Robin got cut. And they had seriously beaten us up to get Robin in there. But as soon as the budget went a little over, it's like, bye-bye, Robin.
Way to go, Batmobile.
Yeah, exactly. So
well,
there's a lesson there to be learned, but I'm not sure what it is.
Well, these guys here all know that I wore a considerable amount of black clothing in my teens and 20s and in most of my 30s.
Don't stop there.
Still do now.
You're in your 40s.
Getting there too. So, of course, I have to ask about Tim Burton. One of my favorite directors, especially when I was younger. Beetlejuice is one of my favorite movies of all time. Obviously, Batman. at this point, he's only done a couple projects. What he did? He did
Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Yeah, Pee-wee's and Beetlejuice, right?
Beetlejuice.
Yeah, no, it was. I think while we were in development on Batman, Beetlejuice came out, and it was making at the time. And this sounds pitiful now, but it was making $1 million a day.
Yeah.
When it came out, and that was hugely more money than Warner Brothers had been expecting it to make. It had tapped into some popular vein, and so they felt like he was sort of like this director of last resort that they had attached it to, and suddenly he turned out to be a guy who could deliver a surprise, an unsuspected hit for the studio. And once that happened, he was the studio's guy all the way. And my friend Bonnie Lee, the person who put me on the project, was his patron as well, and that's how she was able to put us together. And she had been a big supporter of his, from Frankenweenie and Hansel and Gretel on. And so it was just it's just lucky that it worked out the way it did.
Well, coming from his background in animation with Disney, and then coming over to do stuff like Batman, right? I mean, it kind of makes sense that he would be attracted to that sort of material. So that's
yeah. Well, I think that was the initial logic of it. That he has a kind of cartoony sensibility, and so he seems like the right person to do a movie that would be, in the studio's imagination, kind of taking place in very bright primary colors. And of course, the movie turned out to be something a little different from what they were. But yeah,
it fit his aesthetic. So
yeah.
So what's you had mentioned earlier Prince? So yeah, obviously, and a lot of people have great Prince stories through the years meeting him. Did you have a good Prince story? What's he like?
The only Prince story I have is the big treat for me. It was Prince was signed to do songs for Batman.
That's a huge get too.
And I got to hear the CD of the Prince songs for Batman about 6 months before it was released by Warner Brothers Records, and I got to sort of punch my way through his entourage at the premiere party and shake hands with him. And I've always been a huge Prince fan since about 1980.
Yeah.
And so that was a big treat for me. Of all the people that you get to collaborate with on a movie project, wow, I got to collaborate with Prince.
Yeah.
So Sam,
and that's all I've got for Prince.
Oh,
well, that's more than most of us. So
well, okay, let's just put it this way. Ryan was freaking out a little bit when you referred to Tim as just Tim.
Yeah, I was like, Tim. Oh yeah, Tim Burton. Yeah, Tim.
So where were you on opening night of that movie?
Oh, good question.
Wow, opening night. I don't know. I remember very clearly. Seeing the preview of it. I flew down to L.A. to see the sort of premiere before the premiere party. But wow, I truthfully do not remember where I was on opening night.
Hanging out with some friends, neighbors that didn't know what you did for a living.
Yeah. I was probably out walking my dog and selling drugs. Yeah, as I said before. I mean, the scary thing for me was just how completely it took over, and suddenly the bat insignia was everywhere. I remember. There was a neighbor's house. It was about 3 or 4 blocks away from where I lived. I was just driving past one day on my way back home from somewhere, and a guy had painted his garage door black, and it had a huge bat signal on it. And I just thought, well, this is kind of gone too far. And it's like, you're gonna have to you're going to have to paint that out when the Indiana Jones movie comes out, pal.
Well, I definitely we've had a lot of customers in the store that, this was a defining moment in their comic book collecting lives where they kind of pointed to their friends and they're like, see, this is what we were talking about. The Batman shirts everywhere. I think there's few movies that kind of hit the kind of cultural zeitgeist like this has, especially now. I mean, your big movies tend to come and go pretty quick. You have things like Avengers Endgame, obviously, and these $2 billion movies. But Batman, I think people forget, this took over the country because there isn't 50 more superhero movies lined up. This was the one thing you got.
Well, it was also one of those movies that just stuck in theaters. Like, it didn't leave the theater for close to a year or something like that, if I recall. Like, it literally was still in theaters when the VHS came out, and that was unheard of at the time.
I remember that was a big issue because the VHS came out, I want to say 6 months after the initial release, and there were still places where the movie was playing, and it was considered a shocking sort of breach of etiquette by Warner Brothers that they released the VHS tape that quickly. It was the first movie that had come out and gone straight to tape in that short of a window.
I got an ad to pre-order Frozen 2 on Blu-ray yesterday, which came out last weekend. So, it's very different now, obviously. The only thing I can tell you is buy lots of them, and they make perfect gifts for your friends, your family, birthday presents, Christmas gifts, et cetera, et cetera. So, and what's amazing about the Batman movie,
or you can just send me a nickel, for each copy that you would have bought for a friend.
Well, what's so amazing about the Batman movie, too, is the way it's even influenced things today. The Batman animated series, obviously, very influenced by the first two Batman movies, and has kind of driven the direction of comic book animation to today. Even the 1990s Flash TV show, John Wesley Shipp, the actor that played the Flash on that, he's still working in the new Flash TV show that's out. They're doing a Crisis on Infinite Earths a crossover event that's going to take actors from all the different shows, and he's going to be in it in probably at least two different roles.
Yeah.
He's going to be in there as multiple characters. So people really need to remember, just how much we're just so.
Well, I love that kind of stuff can happen now, because I always just imagine trying to pitch. The idea of doing, let's do Crisis on Infinite Earths,
right.
In 1990, or whatever. I mean, it's what you can do now, and comic books are so canonical now, and I have to say I really do love the Flash series, because it's as simple as this. They recreated the cover image from Flash of Two Worlds, which I think was Flash number 123 or something like that, where you have the old Jay Garrick Flash and you have the Barry Allen Flash, both coming to rescue a woman on whom some bricks are falling. And, the series in season 1 or season 2 basically went to the trouble of designing a shot that would recreate that cover, and I almost wanted to weep, when I saw that, because I thought, oh my gosh, they were following me around when I was 7 years old, and they knew how many times I read that issue over and over, and that series has done a really nice job of trying to come up with, a new way of giving fans the same kind of thrill that, we had as comic book readers when we were very little.
Oh yeah, totally.
And that to me is an admirable thing.
Yeah, it's amazing how much of the comics they can take and use, and obviously, the Marvel movies and the DC shows, they do their own things too, but there is that spark, and I feel like, for years when they tried to do the comic movies, they're almost embarrassed of the source material. and that really has changed in the modern day.
Like you said, it's a combination of coming from the original and giving you something new, keeping the essence of what it is intact when you present it. Walking Dead is such a success, I think, because it keeps the essence of the TV show.
The comic,
or sorry, the comic. Batman. Even Batman the '89, the Tim Burton. It just captured what it needed to capture of Batman. Sam, yours.
Well, it's about finding a new way to give you that frisson. Yeah. To give you that little shiver. And it's when it happens, it's great.
Yes, it's Kevin standing up at the end of a Shazam movie, like clapping because there's a little worm on the screen.
We got a live action mime, and that pretty much just made my year. So,
what a time to be alive!
So I'm curious, especially.
No, and I remember the Flash episode when they had some kind of explosion in one of the quantum interrupters or whatever it was, and boom, here's Jay Garrick's Flash helmet that pops through. Yeah. And it's just like, they threw that in there for the 8 dozen people out there in the audience would know what it was, and the moment of recognition when you realize, okay, there are probably 60 or 70 other people watching this show who are going to know what they're looking at here. It's fun. It's a treat.
So, Sam, you've been super generous with your time. We've got a few more questions. And speaking of the Flash, we'll go lightning round to get through.
Okay.
So, Charlie?
So I was just curious, since we talked about the Flash of Two Worlds and Crisis, is there a story that you're still dying to see them try and adapt?
I think they've come on. As soon as they did Gorilla Grodd, what more can you ask?
The Gorilla Mob guy. I can't remember the other.
Well, yeah, Gorilla Boss. Yeah. But
I think that should be Tim Burton's return.
Julius Schwartz used to say, whenever you wanted to boost the circulation, all you have to do is put on the cover.
Monkey on the cover.
Yep.
Well, I mean, we can't talk Batman 2 without talking about the stars, Jack Nicholson, Michael Keaton, Kim Basinger. Did you have any any interaction with them? Did you get to deal with them at all, or are you pretty hands off when it comes to the actual do a lot of set visits?
I was off the movie by the time those guys came on because there was a writer's strike in spring of 1988, and so when the picture went over to England and went into production, and when the main actors were mostly hired after that, my hands were tied behind me the whole time. And, they had to get British writers to work on the on-set rewrites and so forth and so on during the strike. But, I did get to meet both Jack Nicholson and Michael Keaton after the fact. And it was a great pleasure for me. I mean, I think those guys were both gave. Keaton gives the performance that anchors the movie, and the fact that he is so solid allows Nicholson to go all flamboyant. Yeah. Nicholson kind of plays the character as a vaudevillian who is trying to entertain himself and who basically sort of has contempt for his audience. He thinks the audience is stupid, but, he has to keep coming up with new shtick that will amuse him. And I think that's part of what's so cool about the character.
So if I say the words Batman Returns, what comes to mind for you?
It's wasn't a pleasant experience for me, because I had done an entirely different script. And Tim didn't want to do a sequel, and the only way they got Tim onto the sequel was by telling Tim that he could do, basically a Tim Burton movie that happened to have Batman in it. I thought, the second movie should be about Batman. And so, we had a divergence of opinion on that. And, of course, the director always wins. I mean, that's one of those lessons that you have to sort of accept. As a screenwriter.
Well, we got one last question here.
They're terrific.
Wrap up.
there are terrific things in it. You know, it's not the sequel I envisioned.
Well, we got one last question here before we want to wrap up. You did do a little bit of comic work when the movie came out. You wrote a couple issues of Detective Comics, Blind Justice. It was $5.99,
yes, I did.
$5.99, and $600. How'd you get hooked up with the DC? I mean, I'm assuming you wrote the movie, so they're like, hey, this guy should write some comics too. How was that experience?
I have to say that's basically it. You know, I did a couple of interviews when they were doing, you know, promo for the movie before the movie actually was in production, because the script had kicked around for a couple of years before the movie got underway. And, you know, one of the guys who was interviewing me quoted Denny O'Neil and said, man, that was such a good script. If he ever wanted to write Batman comics, you know, we'd be happy to have him come over and do one. And he told me, and I said, really? Well, tell Denny O'Neil, you know, man, if he would ever have me come over and write a Batman comic, I would love to come over and write a Batman comic. And so, you know, the next thing I know, they call me up and I'm writing a Batman comic. And, you know, it was a big treat for me. And, you know, my one regret is I always wanted as a kid to draw comics. You know, I wanted to be I'm a failed cartoonist. You know, that's why I went into the kind of, you know, hybrid, corrupt visual storytelling medium of screenwriting. And, you know, I wish I had been a good enough artist to draw a Batman comic, but, you know, luckily I got Dennis Cowan as my collaborator, and he's a guy that I could never even, you know, imagine touching as an artist. I mean, I think his stuff is so wonderful and beautiful.
He's come back to do a question series again recently, inked by Bill Sienkiewicz, which just came out, and the art's just like I got to tell you, the world's greatest dream is Cowan inked by Sienkiewicz. I mean, I think that's just the most natural pairing. Yeah.
In the world. It's such a treat to see that stuff. Yeah.
Well, Sam, thank you so much for coming on and talking with us and walking down memory lane. 30 years. We were all babies then.
Well, you know, thank you guys. Thank you guys for suffering through this. As you were very, very kind.
No, this is amazing. Like this is awesome to get like this more in depth into something that like impacted me so much as a child.
Hey, I do have one funny anecdote to close us out here, because these guys have heard this before. When I was a kid, I was a really big Marvel fan, and when the Batman movie came out, my parents were like, "All right, we're gonna go see this Batman movie because it's the thing everyone's seeing," and I was like, "No, that's a DC thing. I don't want to watch that." The irony is, I mean, I did go see it, obviously, and I loved it, and watched every other movie to the degree that I saw Batman.
I don't even understand how
Batman
you did that.
and Robin like twice opening night on the same, just because I was like, it's Batman, I have to go see this. And of course, I am now like the biggest DC fan in the world, so it is kind of funny how things change. But I remember being like, nah, I don't want to see Batman. I'll pass on that. Yeah, you know, it's not Marvel.
We knew there was something wrong with
Times have changed.
I understand that. I mean, you know, I have to say, I started reading DC Comics first because Marvel wasn't there yet.
Right.
But, you know, I went over totally to Marvel when I was a kid. I mean, as far as I was concerned, you know, the whole Marvel universe was so much. Hipper is not quite the word I want to use, but kind of hipper.
Yeah,
you know,
Stan would use it.
Yeah, I mean, you know, they were treating the characters realistically, and you know that's the thing that to the extent that you can say, you know, a character that is fighting off the reincarnation of King Tut, who has come to New York as a supervillain. You know, if you can treat those characters realistically, then yes, Marvel was treating those characters realistically. But yeah, I mean, I was kind of the same way, and you know, DC kind of readjusted itself back to being serious. You know, they started doing real stories again, and they started thinking about the characters again. I think as a result of Marvel's influence. So, the two companies have always kind of been at war with each other, but they've also fed off each other in what I think is a really productive way. And, part of what I tried to do with Batman was to treat him as if he had been a Marvel character. And I hope I don't I'll probably get sued for saying that, but that's how it is.
So, is there anything is there anything we should be on the lookout for? Any project you'd like to plug right now, or?
Yeah, I'm in the middle of doing an adaptation of a Japanese horror story, but I don't. We don't have a title for it yet, so I don't know what to tell you to keep your eyes open for. As soon as I do, I will drop you a line and let you know what you should plug.
Please do
when you get a chance.
We're happy to do so.
Social media, always a good place to look out for you. You're on Twitter, Facebook, things like that.
I'm floating around. You guys know how to find me.
Sounds good. Sam, thanks again. This was really fun.
All right. Thank you guys so much. I had a great time, great questions, and just all around thanks.
All right. Talk soon. Have a good night.
Good deal. So long.
Oh, hey, the new king in town. Now you know, gather round. Yeah.
And we're back. The interview's over. Again, thank you very much, Sam, for that. That was terrific. Some great stories in there. Some great questions answered. We are going to answer some questions.
You were just blown away the fact he called him Tim.
Yeah, well,
first person,
Tim.
Tim.
That's his name. Yeah, that is his name. We are going to talk. We asked some questions, and now we're going to answer some questions from our lovely Patreon backers. Yep. Craig Anderson asks.
Wait, he's dropping the P?
Craig Anderson on, that's just what his name is on Patreon. It's not his website is craigpanderson.com. His name is just Craig Anderson. Craig asks, Crisis on Infinite Earths starts on Sunday. Many guest appearances have been announced, but there are at least a few that haven't. You have to believe we'll see Linda Carter as Kingdom Come Wonder Woman, and maybe even Helen Slater as Kingdom Come Power Girl. Oh, Power Girl. She's got to be. They're just kind of a super. What other ones do you think they're not telling us about? Not the ones you want, but the ones they realistically have. Have you seen the trailer? They had the trailer.
I did.
Okay.
I had to.
You haven't, have you?
I watched it. Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Mister, I'm on lockdown. I don't want to hear anything about Crisis. I don't want to see anything about Crisis.
Mark Guggenheim posted the trailer this morning, and I'm like, okay, just a peek.
I didn't know we were supposed to watch this before.
Don't you know by now he's a big hypocrite? Do not take any of his words to heart. Any of his words.
That's on
literally.
If you heard earlier, I don't want to go see Batman.
Never unsubscribe from anything.
Yeah. Well, I'll take that literally.
I just unsubscribed from something the other day.
Oh, even that!
See?
The bedrock truth!
When it's that bad, you have to unsubscribe, okay?
Okay, Toby,
only when it's
you're
that
right.
bad.
You're right.
If I tell you not to
always
unsubscribe,
right.
don't unsubscribe. Okay, Linda Carter is Wonder Woman and Helen Slater is Supergirl. They have to. Even if it's for a second, a reused footage with the costume CG'd on, I think they have to.
You think she's Kingdom Come Wonder Woman?
I mean,
or some kind of woman.
Just because she's so dramatically older than Brandon Ruth, even with his grayed hair.
Yeah.
I think it would look odd.
With the aging of Superman and that kind of stuff, there's arguments that can be made. And yes, I realize Wonder Woman ages slowly also.
Not this one.
Dean Cain, Superman.
We know Dean Cain's in it. Is he Superman?
As Clark or Superman?
Don't know.
Terry Hatcher as Lois.
I mean, I would. Oh, you think they're gonna? Oh wait, no, we don't know Dean. Sorry, we know. What's his face is in
Tom
it.
Welling.
We know Tom Welling's in it.
Yeah.
Dean Cain and so they were both in Supergirl. So it would make.
But that's what I mean.
It's
a realistic possibility.
Yeah. My want, I've mentioned this before, is the animated stuff. I think that'd be a really fun thing to do. I don't think it's going to happen, but so realistically,
if we got, well, because
If they got Superboy back too, either one of them.
Because what's his name? The guy who voices Batman,
Kevin Conroy.
Kevin Conroy's in it, like physically in it.
Yeah.
So
that's why I'm thinking
there's a chance they could be pulling something like.
Even if they wanted to go live action, Tim Daly could definitely kind of pull off a Superman. Clancy Brown could definitely pull off an older Lex.
Just like a live action older Lex,
I could see them sort of solidifying
Tara Strong Harley.
I am going to guess...
These are all wish lists, though, right?
Yeah.
He's saying, who do you realistically think?
But I mean, these are kind of realistic. They already have...
I think... I don't know who, but I think they ponied up for someone from a movie.
Michael Keaton.
Yeah.
That'd be badass.
And you know he'd do it.
I think the easiest one to get from the movie is actually Jason Momoa, but Michael Keaton would be pretty badass.
Yeah. I'm not... I don't... They could have snagged Gal Gadot for a weekend.
Oh.
She's on another project, and they could get her for one shot, right?
I mean,
and then CG enter her into like a big fight or something like that. I think there's a couple of the movie people they could get, but it's gonna if it is, it's the money shot. It's like the final shot of the third episode, like with everyone dying and the crisis happening.
Spoiler.
Yeah. Well, we know what's going to happen. We know the third episode there's a big break between the third and fourth episode.
Okay, here's my prediction to answer Craig's question. I'm just trying to think of something I could throw out there.
Yep.
On a screen or viewed out a window, or I don't even know how you do it, you will see the Christopher Reeve Superman
cool.
for a moment.
Yeah, cool.
So
the music kicks in.
Right. I mean, if they really want to go that route where they're okay using stock footage and stuff, all they have to do is CGI the sky red on various stock footage shots.
Yep.
And
even if it's reused footage, they could totally.
It doesn't even have to be reused. It could just be outtake footage.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Well, we know there's an entire episode of Titans from the new Titans show that just didn't air. Right, the finale, which we've seen some. They released a shot of him in the Nightwing suit. Maybe that's why that shot. Maybe why that shot's floating around now is because they dug up that footage from season 1 finale and are using it because there's a shot of Nightwing in the costume, Firestar Jesus Christ, Starfire. I do it every time. Starfire in her more costumey outfit. And there's
the bikini?
There's a big
or
group,
the swimsuit.
No. And there's like a big group shot that was floating around from the unaired finale of season 1. So maybe that's why that's floating around now. They could use that. Yeah, I think they could get one movie person for the quickest of shots, but that's it.
I want Robbie Amell back as Firestar.
Yeah, I mean, I think any of those characters they could bring back in if they wanted to bring in Stein or
Snart.
He's been out.
He's been out. There's a handful of people that have been out of the show for a while.
Yeah, they could bring a few.
Yeah, but I mean, the beauty of Crisis on Infinite Earths is it doesn't take much to just film something.
Yeah. Verum Libertas asks, should DC bring back Keaton to do a Batman sequel? Do we want to see...
Hell yes, Batman Beyond? Old Bruce Wayne?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
That's been the rumor / wish forever.
Kidding me?
Yeah.
I hella want that.
Yeah.
That'd be really, really cool.
Michael Keaton is old Batman, old Bruce. I'm sold. I'm done.
And again, it's not a movie about him, so his role would be, minimal, right? He'd clearly be in a big chunk of it, but he wouldn't be the star of the movie, right? He would be the supporting
still say
character.
Watch American Assassin with Michael Keaton and a bunch of Robins. It's totally a Batman-esque movie where he's not Batman, but Ace, and there's a bunch of proteges, Robins, with one gone bad. And
sounds like Batman.
Yeah, exactly.
No,
damn it, Jason.
A Batman. They could even do Batman Beyond set like today, right? Pick up from the '89 movie and just say it's 2025.
Yeah.
Batman, this is a continuation of that movie.
It
and
could
now
be like the new Terminator, where you just ignore the Val Kilmer and George Clooney.
Yeah.
So you pick up from the timeline after Returns.
Yeah. I absolutely assumed that's what they would do if they got Keaton. They'd just be like, those didn't happen. In fact,
that's alternate reality.
Other than Alfred, I don't think there's anything. Okay, yes.
Yeah,
And
Alfred and Gordon, I think, are the
Alfred
only
and
two.
Gordon are the only like connective tissue.
Yeah, but when it's multiple parallel universes, there's some people that look the same. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine.
What if what's his face? The Doctor Clooney comes in as Batman and this nipple Batman.
That'd be great. Are you kidding me?
Nipple Batman is
would-
back.
That'd be awesome. I'd have no problem with that. I'm going to defend George Clooney here for a little bit, okay? It's not George Clooney.
I'm right behind you on
It's
this.
the movie.
Yes.
It's not him. Clooney is, as Bruce Wayne, fucking perfect, right? Even Clooney as Batman, fine. It's just the movie's not good. And
That's okay.
Val
Even
Kilmer,
he apologizes for the movie.
well,
So
Val Kilmer, too. Val Kilmer as Bruce Wayne, perfect. Val Kilmer as Batman, but I still don't think they're really good actors.
Batman Forever was not horrible.
No, I'll defend Batman Forever.
It was just it took the franchise in a direction that was. If Returns,
it was 266.
If Returns in the first one had just that splash, right, like, and a little more Burton in the second one, this one was like we took everything out that was dark and have just made it illuminated light, and it's
So, Forever, I've never really had a problem with, except for the fact that it was sort of the stepping stone to let's turn it up even more for Batman and Robin.
they got
this
Seal,
is where
man.
it started to decline. Is kind of where I see Forever.
My complaint has always been Jim Carrey's playing the Joker, and who the hell's Two-Face?
Tommy Lee Jones.
Tommy Lee Jones is playing the Joker. They're just not playing Two-Face and Riddler. Right? That's just aren't those characters. So I don't dislike the movie. I don't love it, but that's not my favorite. But I will defend Batman Returns or Batman Forever quite a bit.
The camp is turned up.
The villains just aren't playing the characters they're supposed to be. It is, but if you, again, I've said this before on the podcast, if you take 3 and 4 and say they're live action 66 movies, perfect, because that's what they're, especially Batman and Robin, that's what they're aiming for. So I'll defend at least the third one.
I'm gonna add a couple of more to the possibilities. Chris O'Donnell as a Robin or a Nightwing.
Oh, yeah, I
because
can see that.
he's on the NCIS LA and he's still acting. He's still on TV.
Yeah, doing TV stuff.
Yeah, so I think he's a possibility. I think Danny DeVito is possible.
Oh,
yeah, because he's still around and doing
he's doing
stuff.
Always Sunny and everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Ooh.
So I think he might be down to come back as a crazy
The
penguin.
fact that he's done, what are we on, like 12 seasons of Always Sunny?
Yeah.
Is out of my. I'm blown away that he's done so much of that show.
Yeah, I think that's a possibility. And, maybe a Michelle Pfeiffer Catwoman. That's a lot. That's the stretch goal. Kickstarter stretch goal on that one. But yeah, I'll add those to the mix.
Okay, I'll bite on Danny DeVito.
I'll bite on Chris O'Donnell.
Yeah. I can see
That'd be some nice surprises because that'd be some that people are not really thinking
We're
about.
all gonna look. We're gonna look
None
super
of-
smart if anybody's listening to this after Crisis is aired.
none of you
Go
want-
like
none of
we're
you
0
wanna-
for 10.
None of you want an older backer with Alicia?
Sure. I mean, I would take literally any character that's been in anything is fine with me. It's just such a fucking cool idea.
Well, they're having that Alexander Knox character, aren't they? The reporter from
Supposedly.
Batman.
Is he in it?
Yes.
Same actor.
That's
Yes.
awesome.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
That's awesome.
I didn't hear that.
Okay, I'm looking this up
There you
to. I swear I didn't
Hey man,
imagine this.
I got
There
my
was
wish.
a
I got my
report
Birds of Prey
for that,
Huntress.
but I don't know if it was rumor or confirmed so
Okay.
much.
Okay.
I got my Birds of Prey Huntress coming back, man. I'm happy as hell.
That's
I'm happy as hell, man.
Did Sherilyn Fenn play
Miss Ashley Scott.
Harley in the pilot of Birds of Prey?
There was two. Yeah, so there's a different Harley in the pilot than there was
Is
in
it
the show.
Sherilyn Fenn? Because
I do not know the actress.
Okay, so when I typed in the actor's name, Robert Wool, the first Google suggestion was Crisis after his name.
okay.
And here, I mean, I just picked one site at random. Crisis on Infinite Earths pulls in its most obscure cameo yet. Batman 89's Robert Wool.
That's
There you
awesome.
go. There you
That's
go.
awesome.
Um,
I'm so happy. My horrible
So I
Birds
guess
of
we
Prey
do
show
get a
got
movie
some love.
person.
There you go.
yeah, I mean, Sherilyn Fenn, obviously, you're right, big Twin Peaks fan. Having her come in as Harley would be fucking incredible. She'd be an amazing Harley Quinn.
She was a better Harley in that on air pilot.
Yeah. Our good friend, longtime friend, customer, and podcast occasional, Chris Bunge, asks,
Chris.
any good Wonder Woman recommendations for comics? I've read the Morrison Earth One books and dipped my toes to the Golden Age omnibus, but I feel like I'm missing some good runs here. You've bookend Wonder Woman, and there's all the stuff in the middle.
Well, Charlie
stuff is
Charlie blind
wild.
bought this one omnibus, which I really, really regret not getting too, because he showed it to me later, and it's
The
I think,
Jimenez.
Oh yeah,
yeah, and it's all the stuff when we were at Legends, basically,
Phil Jimenez.
and it's in all the nice Adam Hughes covers too.
Yep.
But I mean, like the Azzarello omnibus.
Ooh, yes,
Like that's great.
The
that
Rucka
one makes
stuff's
me
really
angry.
good.
Yeah, you have the Rucka stuff. The Perez stuff has omnibuses also. Like
Those
there's
are classic. I think the Perez ones are must reads. I think.
The Perez, the only thing I'd say about the Perez is it's more like the Azzarello and Cliff Chang. These are more mythological than superhero.
Right.
It kind of depends what flavor of Wonder Woman you want.
The Azzarello Cliff Chang one is really good. Again, it's I find it
That one
takes
just
a
pisses me off, man.
why.
Because I bought the Absolute Edition from you, the number one.
the volume one.
Okay.
I still have to yet buy number 2, but the omnibus of both of them together keeps being cheaper than me trying to get number 2 of that book.
Okay. Weird.
So I like to strangle you
know
because
it's-
everything is your fault.
I didn't know it was out of print.
No, it's not out of print.
Oh
No, it's just the omnibus
It's just
retail
cheaper to buy it all
is-
together than buying the number 2.
buy it.
It's
Yeah.
like what
It's very
150,
frustrating.
125 for the omnibus, and then the absolutes.
I think it's like 150 for the omnibus and 125 for the absolute.
Yeah.
But the
Just do it.
omnibus is discounted everywhere where the absolute isn't.
Isn't
Yeah.
yeah.
We should also mention to Chris, all of these are available in trades.
yeah.
Don't think we're
No,
we're
he-
like
no,
the used
no,
car
I-
salesman.
I
only. No,
I only
because
acknowledge
Omnibros will
hardcovers.
not
This is the
accept
car
it.
lot where we just bring out the Rolls Royce, even if you're
Chris-
coming in to look
Chris
for a
likes
station
omnibuses.
wagon. Oh,
He does.
okay.
He likes Charlie size.
I
Yes.
I think that should be a thing when you go through like a drive-through. Like what size? You want like Charlie size?
Charlie
place?
size.
Yes.
there's spotty trades post Golden Age, pre post crisis, right? The 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s.
Yeah,
there's not a lot of that stuff's been collected, and from a very good friend of mine who is one of the world's biggest Wonder Woman fans, there's not a lot of stuff in there maybe worth reading today either. I mean, there's
some good art in those.
There's going to be interesting runs, but I would think a lot of that stuff would not translate very well to a reader
That
today.
Silver, like that Silver Age stuff.
Yeah, I think the Perez stuff is obviously going to be a good run, and he only does art on the first handful, so he doesn't do art for very long, but it's still worth reading. He really sets up the Wonder Woman today. I most of the Gail Simone run was pretty good. I don't know how much of that's currently in print.
They announced an omnibus for the Gail Simone stuff, I think.
Yeah, that sounds right. And definitely the modern stuff. I really like the. I think the Rebirth is easily one of the best runs. The Azzarello, the Greg Rucka, the back and forth between Liam Sharp and Nicola Scott on art.
Yeah.
Between the current day story and the year one. Those first couple volumes are really good.
Even with Wilson's stuff, it was a little rocky to begin with, but I think she's found her.
She hasn't done the last few issues. No,
She found her footing in it. But they're transitioning now to a new creative team. I guess.
Yeah, Steve Orlando's the current writer, and he's much better. Yeah, G. Will Wilson, her run was okay, but
There's also that odd Alan Heinberg, Terry Dodson
yeah,
run,
good,
right?
that's good stuff. Yeah,
Where she's a secret agent,
Yep.
which is going back to the 60s run.
Yeah, they collected that a while ago too, with all the mod Wonder Woman stuff. So
Those are not good.
That's not a good trade. I've actually been very
No,
curious
they're really,
about-
it's cool,
Yeah.
but
it's not Wonder Woman.
they're not. It's Denny O'Neil trying to write hip, and it's Mike Sikowski way past his prime, illustrating a book he probably shouldn't have been on.
Oh.
But it's cool. She has like an Asian martial arts master as her.
Okay, so
Mentor.
the way
She's
I
depowered,
as an outsider looking in, and maybe I have the timelines all wrong, I kind of feel like it was them going, it's not selling anymore. Let's the Angel 5 Wonder Woman.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
of course.
It's
Right.
pre Charlie's Angels. It's more like the Avengers. Do you know the British, the Avengers?
Oh, okay, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
It's like
yeah.
because she wears a full bodysuit, like Mrs. Peel.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's the reason why the Avengers, the first movie, is called Avengers Assemble in the UK. It's because of the Avengers movie. And I had to have my friend in
there's
the
also the old
UK give me a
Avengers
poster.
TV show.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Final question of the night is from Chris. See if we
Wait,
have
final?
Yeah. It's a Patreon
There was
questions.
only like 3.
Yeah, it's Patreon questions. It's
And
fine.
then we move on to normal
I
questions?
didn't do Twitter. We had the interview. I didn't know how long it was going to run. We got these. We're good. We're almost
Very
out.
disappointed in you, Mr.
From
Higgins.
Chris.
I don't even know if he posted a Twitter question.
What is
That
the
can be
best
fixed right now.
new pop culture character of 2019? Because for me, Baby Yoda is the character I never knew I needed. That's from Chris. Are you guys all Baby Yoda haters?
Well, the
Well, I
fact
haven't
that
watched The
my Twitter
Mandalorian also.
the Twitter feed blew up today on all the pre-order on the merch today.
Yeah.
I'm actually slightly disappointed in Disney that they didn't plan this.
So
Where episode
Are we not going to talk Watchmen?
I had planned to talk Watchmen when it ended. It did not occur to me that the same week it's going to end is the week we're doing our double back best of episode.
So
I just
disappointed
assumed.
in
I
you,
just
Mr.
figured
Higgins.
the internet exploded this week, so...
Well, I mean, if you guys want to, well, you have
Well, it
not
keeps on-
seen
I haven't
it.
seen
It
it.
keeps on exploding after.
You have
it.
not.
So there's 2 episodes light.
yes.
I'm behind.
Yeah.
Yes. I looked this up.
I'm also behind on Mandalorian.
I
30 minutes.
I'm also no, they're not.
Anyway, the best pop culture
No,
character.
well, I assume we will be discussing Watchmen at great during our end of year episodes. Let's just leave it at that. That will be a spoiler full.
I can
podcast,
guarantee
so.
you that will be discussed on
Yes.
that
I
episode.
might need to borrow your password.
So if it's not Baby Yoda and it's not Looking Glass, too many other choices for best pop culture character of 2019.
Captain Marvel's cat.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I can't believe that movie was this year.
Yeah, it feels
That
like
feels like it came out 2
20
years
years ago,
Yeah.
doesn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah.
Well, it's the same with Black Panther. Remember, it was like Black Panther came out. We're like, oh my god, that was still out this year.
We were talking. I think isn't there like Black Panther is not coming out to like 2022 or 2023 or something crazy? You're
We were
like
talking
that
about this yesterday. The other
feels
day.
like so long.
It's gonna be here before we know it.
How is Marvel? How is Disney not like? Fuck 2020 Black Panther 2.
I'm
We're doing
actually,
it.
No.
All the money towards Black Panther.
No. I'm actually kind of glad that we get a little
Give
bit
it
of a
some
break.
time.
Yeah, I watched the Chadwick Boseman new movie 21 Bridges, and I was not very happy with it. It was a Russo brothers produced movie. Going in and then seeing the credits.
The trailer looks really fun.
Oh, the trailer looks fantastic, but
not good.
yeah. And I thought it was a Russo brothers movie.
No,
So at the very end, I was like, wait, they didn't write it? Okay, they directed it. Hey, wait, they didn't direct it? I'm like, I got duped. I got bamboozled is what they call it.
I'm just running
By
through
the
the
trailer.
choices for his question, but everybody I can think of is an established character that was just realized really well.
I'm thinking his question is
New character?
Baby Yoda.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
amazing,
Yeah.
and that's sort of the question. Which you're shrugging.
I mean, it.
Well, here's my Baby Yoda stance.
I need a real one.
Baby Yoda's amazing.
Not a toy.
Mandalorian's great. I don't need any Baby Yoda stuff. Right?
Yeah.
Like I think
That's fair.
Oh, and to answer your
You're
question,
finally an
Charlie,
adult?
or why did they not have stuff? Who asked this?
Me.
Toby.
You.
Well, I don't know if I asked it. I was just saying I'm disappointed they didn't plan this very well.
They planned this exactly the way it was supposed to be. They didn't want him to leak out. They didn't want that to leak.
That's cool. All
if
right,
they
sure.
had, if they well, I'm
Favreau basically
They-
stated
they've
that
said
he
this.
didn't want it leaked.
Yeah, publicly, like,
and
we-
the merchandising would have done it.
yeah.
Sure.
We did not
I
want to
can see
give that away.
I can see that.
I don't think they could have quite guessed how popular this character would be. But the problem now comes by the time the merch is out, the show's been off the air for 5 months, right? So 4 months. So they should have just said,
Oh, they'll sell the merch just
I
fine.
will sell. People buy those fucking Funko Pops. It's fine.
Yeah.
But I kind of wish they had just said, you know what?
Released.
No, we'll do stuff later, but we're not going to rush it. Let it happen naturally.
Twitter feed,
That
the Twitter feed
first
blew up
round of
today.
Cafe Press
Those
merch
shirts
were
were
atrocious.
Awful. They're like almost like retro bad.
Yeah.
They're like bad on purpose.
Yeah.
I almost wonder if that's what they were going for. They're
Did
like,
you see the Wonder Woman shirt today?
which one?
The one with the helmet?
I mean, I saw some of the 84,
Yeah.
and this is the licensing stuff, right? This is exactly what would have happened had they
Yeah.
made Baby Yoda public.
Sure.
We would have seen
I
all
can
this
see
stuff
that.
before the
Yeah.
trailer.
Fair enough.
So, yeah, there's, I mean, does anyone care about a potential costume spoiler for Wonder Woman 84?
No.
Do anyone care? I mean, it seems like we're getting a variation of the Kingdom Come costume.
Oh.
So, yeah, that's the end of it. But there's a lot of merch that started to hit. And the word is the trailer. Well,
Trailer next week.
the trailer is supposed to be this weekend, right? I didn't want to talk about
Black Widow.
Black Widow because we'll probably talk about... Kevin didn't watch it and doesn't want to watch it.
Well,
So,
he watched
But
half
I
of
watched
it.
half of it.
you want to talk about half of it?
Well, I made the choice. I just don't want to see things, but
Okay.
you guys are free to talk about it.
Okay. Oh, okay. I thought you didn't
See,
want to talk
unlike
about it.
you, he's not a hypocrite.
No, this is a great way to end the podcast, especially if anyone is going like hard spoiler free. They don't want to see anything about Black Widow. We can talk about Black Widow here for a
It's not
second.
coming out until May, is that correct?
May 2020.
Yeah,
Yeah,
see,
May 1st.
anything that we say right now, I will have forgotten by May anyway, so it's fine.
My initial comment, which I still stand by, is I really like the trailer. It looks really good.
It looks good.
fun. The action looked good. I was hoping for something a little darker, a little more down to earth.
Giving us more of like what her and Hawkeye would talk about at like.
This looks like crazy super spy science fiction James Bond. I was hoping for like darker, serious.
Well,
Just
So you wanted Dr. No and you're getting Moonraker.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, sure.
so my initial assumption before seeing the trailer is that they were going to take sort of the Wonder Woman approach of it's way in the past, and even if they kind of show a scene later, they would focus mainly on the past. The trailer makes it seem like they're inserting this into already established timeline.
Yeah, I thought what I had read originally was this takes place right before or after Age of Ultron. I don't remember which.
I'm cool with that.
And I don't know if that's true. I don't know if that's been debunked. I don't know.
When I
but-
watched the trailer, I thought it was between the Avengers, the Infinite War and Endgame.
An Endgame?
Yeah, I'm trying to combine the two
No,
titles there
so-
for a second.
The world doesn't look decimated enough.
Yeah,
It
sure.
doesn't-
So my assumption is it's either right after Civil War
Yeah.
because she's basically on the run anyways,
yeah, could be. Could be.
or right after the Age of Ultron, after Bruce kind of vanishes.
Yeah. If there's been a specific announcement of this, I haven't seen it, but
The first
it
one
is
I had.
current to the movies. It's
Yeah.
not like some wait thing, and that's what I was expecting. Like maybe they'll do a little de-aging on her to kind of have this take place before the movie, and it could be super dark, and she's I don't know, an assassin for the Russian government or something, right? Like her origin.
We're
not-
seeing the
Well,
blood.
you
she
might
keeps
get to
talking
see
about.
some of that stuff in flashbacks.
Yeah, that's my hope. And I don't want to sound like I'm down on it. I had something a little different in my mind that I was hopeful for, but yeah, it still
The first
looks
thing
really good.
I thought when I saw the trailer was I was like, this feels like Winter Soldier, which I'm
Yeah.
like exactly what I want for
Yep,
this. So I'm super stoked. I actually had no idea this trailer was dropping. Usually we have a clue. I feel like this morning I woke up and Ben, our good friend Ben on the Facebook site, I was like, here you go. I was like, oh.
The word was it was supposed to debut at that same con. The Wonder Woman trailer is supposed to debut.
Oh, really?
at. And I wonder if maybe it started to leak or word started to get out. So they're
yeah,
like,
they're like,
fucking
oh,
just,
yeah.
just drop it.
Oh, yeah.
Which made me also wonder if the Wonder Woman trailer would drop today, and it didn't. So,
It's tomorrow.
well, I don't.
Who knows?
I mean, that'd be
No,
awesome,
we'll-
but I
we'll
don't
drop-
think it is.
2 minutes after we leave the shop.
Yeah. It happened 10 minutes.
You know,
happened
happened
35
while we were
minutes ago.
recording.
Yeah. We just haven't seen it yet.
I know that Charlie really loves something out of the trailer. That
Well, yeah, I was enjoying the trailer in general. Then David Harbour just stole the trailer. So
Yeah.
come on, you can't be down on David Harbour.
No, I like him. I like him as an actor.
You just hate Stranger Things.
No, I like Stranger Things enough.
Bullshit. It's not accurate per the Ryan Higgins chronological of music thingy.
That is true. That does bother me. There's
Yeah.
no way that guy would have listened to the first Smith single.
That's the
There's
first thing.
no way.
So I'm like,
There's
Ryan,
no
you should
way.
really watch the show Stranger Things. And he came back. That's the first thing he said. It's not accurate.
No.
This is
music
bullshit.
isn't accurate.
Yeah,
It's
yeah. I was
done.
like,
It's
I
over.
can't stand it. These
There's
posters.
no way this kid in the middle
Yeah.
of fucking
These posters
bumfuck
would not be on
Virginia.
this wall right now. It's not accurate.
No one was a fan of Evil Dead in 1984 or 1983 or whatever. Like no one had seen it. That was the whole idea. Is that it was like college kids and like people saw it later. Like nobody was. They didn't have it. There was a poster of that some kid could buy and hang on his wall. Fucking Stranger Things. Anyway, and the show's
if you
fine.
worked
Whatever,
at the movie
show's fine.
theater,
The
you
show's
could get
fine.
one.
What were we saying? I don't remember.
David Harbour.
Oh yeah, he's fine. He's fine. I am concerned about a return of fat forward jokes.
Yeah,
Right?
that's the first thing I was like, oh, they're bringing that back too soon. Maybe,
Yeah,
But
maybe,
he didn't seem as fat. So
I mean, it's just.
I do
besides
like
being
seeing
a little,
him though.
Well, yes. Besides being a little, I mean, I don't know, insensitive. The joke's kind of not that funny. I don't want. I didn't want this movie to be like a slapsticky Marvel movie, and it doesn't look like it. And if there's some jokes, totally fine. And if they're funny,
Here we go with the
totally
jokes
fine.
again, man.
Totally fine. But I don't want it to be like every 5 seconds he's like, "Oh, wait for me, guys." You know, like I
See, at this point, Marvel has to cover all its things. I'm
Red
like, we have
Guardian-
to do a little bit of jokes.
He's,
We
so
have to be a little.
he's playing
dark.
Red Guardian, right? He's playing Red Guardian, who's Russia's Captain America,
Yeah.
right? And the joke in the did you see?
I didn't
Now
get to
you
him.
get to the bottom.
I mean, the joke in the trailer is he's not old and fat, all right? So
but he squeezes back into the
Yeah.
So he's older and put on some weight. I would not call him fat.
well, they call him fat, so that's yeah.
But there's a very big difference between how they showed him and how they showed Thor.
yeah.
sure,
Okay,
sure.
Toby. So Ryan, I have a question.
Yep.
Since you hate jokes and joy
Yes.
and all humor,
I hate
Joy,
humor.
I like how you said joy.
I hate humor.
but you
And joy.
you are a big fan of the JLI series,
Oh yeah,
and that's all jokes and
Remember-
poking fun at everything. So
Remember
funny.
hypocrite?
oh,
no,
Yeah, remember that word hypocrite?
It's funny. That's the difference. I hate bad jokes. I hate things that are trying to be funny and aren't. I hate forced humor. That's the stuff that I hate. It fits the tone. If they started Thor 1 as like a laugh riot, I probably would be fine with all the movies that follow, with the Ragnarok. But it's the tonal switch that doesn't work for me. If they wanted to have like a weird spin-off and do a goofy thing, that's fine. JLI, the comic, starts as a... And people kind of don't... It's not a humorous book the whole way through. There's actually some really serious stuff in that run. But there's comedic elements throughout. And looking at it as a kind of after the fact, I'm okay with it. Because I also had the regular Justice League comic to kind of counter it. I do have a customer that always says he hates that run because he was such a big Justice League fan. And when the books were coming out, he's like, I want my regular Justice League comic book, right? So
Me with X-Force and the Ecstatics.
No, but that's a good comic. That's the difference. It's way better than anything else bearing those names. So just throw all those other X-Force comics in the trash and only read Ecstatics because that's good.
Charlie,
After all these
Fuck
years,
you,
Ryan
Ryan
really knows how to push buttons.
you gotta fuck you, Charlie.
Yeah. Hey, I have one more thing to say about the Black Widow trailer. Is
Yeah.
I kind of like it that it's not so far in the back, like timeline wise, because I think some of the characters that get introduced in that movie are like characters we're gonna have in future movies. I have a feeling we're gonna get a new Black Widow out of this movie. Like
Well,
a new Black Widow character.
I don't have her name in front of me. I forget the blonde Black Widow. Yeah, whatever her name is. I mean, she's a straight villain. So I don't think we're getting anything with her going forward.
I'm just saying, I think we're gonna get characters that are gonna stick around
They could bring 'em
from
back.
this movie.
did I
Sure,
see a
sure.
brief shot of Thunderbolt Ross?
So apparently, yeah. But I don't. Where was
Okay, so you need to place it in the timeline somewhere where he would not be involved with the Hulk and would be interacting with the Black Widow.
Well, no.
Well, as I said, my assumption is this is
was he?
either right after Age of Ultron or right after.
No, because
He's standing at the end.
He's the guy at the
He was at the funeral.
he was at the funeral, and it's basically the his character is the one that
who's the one that was in Shield? Agents of Shield. The one they
Hill?
brought in. No, is that another? You know what I'm talking about, Charlie, right? It's not Thunderbolt Frost. That's correct.
No.
It's the other guy.
No, it's
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
yes.
Okay,
The bald head
did
guy.
he die?
I think so.
Okay, maybe that's what I was thinking.
Was it the bald
But no,
guy?
but like the last time prior to the funeral, last time I remember seeing Thunderbolt Ross was in Civil War
Yeah, I
because he's the one that brought the whole Accord and stuff to.
he was in the Accords and all that.
Do you think he's going to stick around long enough to be the Red Hulk?
that'd be cool. I mean, I hate the Red Hulk, but that could be cool in the movie.
Yeah. Since they already have him sticking around so much, it would be kind of cool to use him in that way.
Yeah. Maybe he gets infected in this movie, and that's why we haven't seen him since. And
Yeah,
they're going to bring him back in some movie going forward.
Yeah.
Also, people, I think, should, because I know Leanne had asked me about this, and she kind of made a comment when she was watching the trailer. When they say, like, cis, like, hey, cis, I mean, they're not sisters. They're a part of, like, that group.
They're part of that group of female trained assassins, and they were sisters in.
Yeah.
Just wait for the retcon.
Yeah, I can't.
They're sorority sisters.
Sure. I can't.
It's an assassin sorority,
Right. I don't think they're going to make them like biological sisters. I that's not how I read that scene. It could, hopefully that's not the case. That wouldn't seem to make a lot of sense, but
I mean, the way I would probably do it is grew up in the same orphanage.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
I like the White Widow costume that we got briefly.
yeah, it's cool. It's fine looking. Yeah, she does a superhero pose. Your favorite? She doesn't walk away from an explosion though, but I'm sure that'll happen.
No, well, she flies through like shit from the sky with explosions. It's kind of like walking.
Kind of walking away from an
Yeah,
explosion.
yeah,
Kinda,
yeah.
kinda,
Falling, flying.
So rough on the knees.
So you get all the tropes you have to have in a comic book movie. You get the Iron Man land.
I hope there's like an evil Black Widow that she fights at the climax. I know the Taskmaster is the villain, but I'd much rather see a doppelganger of her.
Well, we see it in the trailer.
Yeah.
She fights
Her
blonde
sister,
Yeah,
quote, unquote.
and I'm assuming she's gonna be. I mean, they'll probably set her up as a good guy, but hey, she's probably the villain of the movie because she's a bad guy. Yeah. Oh, you're talking because it's a doppelganger.
Yeah,
That's
I want two equally matched characters with the same powers fighting each other at the end.
So we got to talk about Taskmaster. One of the greatest costumes in all of comic book history, and by that I mean one of the worst costumes. I mean,
What?
It's so bad it's good, right?
It's awesome.
No, it's
that-
fucking awesome.
that
What are you
original
talking
George
about?
Perez-
No, in the comics.
That original
Yeah, it's
George
awesome.
Perez,
It's awesome.
Yeah,
with
what the
huge
fuck you talking
pirate
about?
Boots.
Yeah.
And the color scheme,
The white,
it's
the hood,
perfect
and the
George
skull.
Perez,
Yes.
Yeah.
over-designed,
It's
glorious,
awesome.
right?
Yeah.
So, do you think they changed the costume so dramatically for the movie because of China? Yes or no? 'Cause
What?
China, you can't show skeletons, you can't have bones, you can't have all that stuff.
Why not?
That's China.
What are you talking about?
You can't have that stuff in entertainment and movies and television, video games.
What are you talking about? Since when?
So
Always?
yeah, there's certain movies that just can't open in China because of that stuff.
But I've seen Chinese movies with bones and skeletons and all
I mean,
that shit.
this
I mean,
is,
I think it's more supposed to be like the occult stuff.
Yeah.
They don't
So the
want.
white people can have fucking bones and shit like that.
I'm just asking,
So-
do we think that's why? Because, I mean, it doesn't look anything like Taskmaster.
No.
That's my...
I just
From
love in this
Logic
day
had
and
his
age
hand
they
at
could have
it.
given us both.
Yeah?
I mean, with CGI, they could have easily been
Flip.
like,
Yeah. The American version, the Chinese version. I mean, we don't know. We don't know. But that seems to be the internet theory, and I subscribe to it. So
I think,
He does look like a horrible version of Bullseye right now.
yeah. I think it's more that the Marvel villains in the MCU are more,
Grounded.
and I use this word, grounded. I was going to say realistic.
yeah,
In the look.
boring.
Well, think of
Hey man, the sock is coming for
Other-
Baron Simo.
other
Thank
than
God.
Loki,
Yeah,
who is adorned in Asgardian
And
look,
and Sif.
but other than Asgardian characters,
Sure.
what Marvel villains have really looked like their
Ultron?
comic?
the space stuff.
I mean, other
yeah,
than Red
the-
Skull.
not the humans.
The skull.
Vulture.
Not the
How did that
humans.
open? Did
Well,
that not
Vulture,
open?
Vulture doesn't look anything
Did
like.
Captain America open in China? There's a fucking dude in a red skull walking around.
But he's alive, so maybe it doesn't count.
Yeah, so Taskmaster. So Taskmaster.
Taskmaster's
But
alive.
it's red, not white.
See, the thing you have to understand is Toby's just really, really upset
Look,
right now that they'd have to redesign Skeletor for the He-Man movie.
Look this up. Because
Yeah, did He-Man movie not come out in China?
I don't know. This is just what I understand. I don't know what they would do with
Is
Taskmaster.
this why Skeletor is like a half a human in the 1980s movie? Not kidding.
I don't know what they would do with Taskmaster, costume-wise.
You
The
could
way
make
Boss
that
Logic
costume
did
look
it.
incredible. You have this guy drop down whatever.
Dude,
a
Boss
hood,
Logic did in like 2 minutes
cloak.
today.
Yeah, the head and the skull and all that. They don't do the
No, you
pirate
don't have to do the boots.
They don't
You
do.
just need the-
I don't need that.
Well, it's like when they did. Okay, so I like in so was it Winter Soldier? Yeah, which had
Crossbones.
no,
movie-
not Crossbones. Shit.
I wish Crossbones looked a little better.
The jumping, leaping Captain America villain,
Matrock?
Batroc the Leaper.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Like, okay, you've got the point. He doesn't have to look like anything.
Right.
He just looks like a regular dude. Taskmaster, so much of him is Taskmaster is the look and that skull face and everything. Yeah, Toby's showing. Boss Logic did a artist named Boss Logic does a ton of great art. He did like a redesign of Taskmaster of Howard. So look, yeah, and it looks fantastic. Right?
Yes.
I would love that. It just looks very generic in the movie.
Yes,
as
it
is.
looks terrible in
Yeah.
the movie.
Now
He looks like the vigilante from Arrow.
he's an awesome villain. So I am so excited to see what they do.
I
with
want him to be the main villain, though.
Do we know who the main villain is? I'm
I
assuming
want
it's
Black Widow to fight him, and in essence, she's fighting the entire Avengers that way.
Yeah, we don't know. For anyone that doesn't know, right? His power is that he can like perfectly mimic other fighting techniques and abilities, and so when you're going up against an army of assassins, he's going to be and Hawkeye. He's going to have all these powers. Maybe he's studied the Avengers, right? We don't know what they're going to deal with. But Taskmaster is a super cool villain. Especially, he's not like magic and flying and all that shit. So for Black Widow and Hawkeye and the low level Avengers, he's the perfect villain for them to fight. I just want to see if they can maybe spruce that costume up a little bit.
I also
before.
thought in comic books whenever to hire him to come train people.
Oh yeah.
So for me, I kind of don't want him to be the main villain, but a large part of the reason why I don't want him to be the main villain is the same way they use like the Claw in Age of Ultron. Like,
Well, he doesn't have to die. I just don't want him to fight, like Kevin says, the
what a
utter
waste.
Black
but
Widow.
I'm not-
Yeah.
I'm
Oh,
not-
but he's going to. I mean, that's totally the.
but
She has to be the main villain, right?
I'd rather she be like the B villain and Taskmaster be the A villain.
I think
But-
it's the other
but-
way around.
the
Well,
point I
fuck
was
off,
making with like
Brian.
the Claw is they used the Claw and then he obviously sort of escaped and could come back in a future like.
And they kill him immediately.
Well, yeah, but my point is I don't mind him being used in the Black Widow movie. I just don't want him to basically only be in the Black Widow movie. I'd like them to leave him with enough juice that his next appearance has meaning.
Where he gets hired to teach someone on the
Oh, they
Avengers how to
can't.
fight.
They can't kill. They can't kill him. They have to keep him around. I mean, what a waste of Claw and Black Panther. What a waste. Like he should have. Killmonger, whatever. He could be in the background doing something, setting up the next movie. Claw should have
Ryan
been the main villain
Higgins.
of Black Panther.
Yeah.
We don't have enough time to start this.
What
As I
about
said, my
Killmonger?
thing is just typically if you make somebody the main villain, other than Loki, they tend to resolve that character.
Not too many of them. Well, this is
well,
the
not
problem.
even necessarily kill them, but they tend to resolve the threat.
he's
So
good.
it's hard to make them the threat in the next.
Like an Ant-Man and Ant-Man and Wasp, right? I mean, Ghost kind of becomes good by the end of the movie to a degree. Giant Man's not, or Goliath, I mean, he's sort of a bad guy, good guy situation. And the humans are the only real villains in the movie, past Ghost, that actually are bad. So, all right.
So China's.
I don't care anymore.
I looked it up. No, I sat here and looked it up. You're going to deal with it. So. Yeah, you're going to walk away.
We
You're
can
fine.
all
Bye,
walk
Charlie.
away.
So, Deadpool was censored
Yeah.
due to violence,
they're all
nudity,
censored. Yeah,
graphic.
Joker won't open there. I mean, it's an R rating. They won't.
It was not possible to remove the content without affecting the plot. It was finally shown uncensored with a full 108-minute runtime and 7 screenings in June. Suicide Squad. Violence from the yeah. So it's a lot of times it has to do with like violence and stuff. It's not to do with skeletons.
Well, I mean, that is the thing.
It's again, it's up the superstitions and all that stuff. It has to do with some like the game censoring that they've done. Back to the Future was banned in China.
What?
Yes, Back to the Future was banned in China, but somehow they approved it for direct to video.
I don't understand how it's banned and then you could just go buy it and watch it.
Yeah, they ban it. So according to the list here, go back up to it.
To be fair, a lot of the Chinese probably can't afford to buy it and watch it.
The film was banned because of time travel. The direct to video somehow got approval. Like,
well, that's
it's
silly shit on the internet.
It's there's no
superstitions.
Yeah, there's no real concrete.
It's not a law. It's
Yeah.
just they don't do it.
Yeah, and a lot of it has to go. Does it go against the Chinese government? Does it bring up? Is it too violent? Is it
who was the Chinese actress that they had a bunch of extra scenes of in
Iron Man 3?
It's Iron Man 3, right? Yeah. Where like her scenes weren't in the American version. Right?
Was it Iron Man 3 or was it one of the Avengers movies? Was it?
Was it Age of Ultron?
It was Age of
Ultron.
Yeah.
The lady that was the doctor, right?
And Thor: Dark World, right? Where they made the actor, they put him like front and center on the poster.
One of the Warriors 3,
yeah, and they gave him. I think he had like an extra scene in the Chinese release or something like that. There's very specific ways they target some of these movies to the Chinese audience, and the skeleton thing is one of those. That it is like a.
There's superstitions to it. I mean, it just depends on what.
I hate it when they had the one Chinese pop star in Transformers for no reason. Where he got all these random ass scenes, and I was like, "The fuck is going on?"
Yep, that's fine. All right. Other than being, official Chinese cultural delegates here,
do we air in China?
I mean,
no, they shut us down.
Is there Spotify? Does Spotify reach China? I don't know.
Do we have Chinese listeners?
No, hell no.
We are going to wrap up now. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you, Sam, once again for the interview. It was fantastic. So you give that a listen. If you have not watched Batman recently, just give it a watch. It's a great movie.
I watched it last night, baby. Nice. It was awesome.
The last time I saw it with the San Francisco Symphony.
Yeah,
they did the.
You got to see that.
They showed the movie and did a live orchestra, orchestra.
Yeah, they had a live orchestra in the pit.
Yeah, on the stage, showing the movie above it. It was pretty good. We have some Patreon backers to thank: Joe Duff, Sam Che, Andrew Nelson Mendez. He's over at Recovery of an Anime Junkie podcast. Go check them out. Craig Anderson. His website is craigpanderson.com.
I'm pretty sure we're going to have some listeners that actually understand this whole skeleton shit. So just post it on our Facebook group or something.
We will. Jimmy Rivera, he is at the Social Forum podcast. That's the Social Forum, FOURUM.buzzsprout.com. And, of course, James Laws. Thank you guys all very much for your continued support on Patreon. Because of the holiday weekend and the early recording day, we'll have our next Patreon backer episode next week. So at the end of the episode, we'd like to thank our $5 and higher backers. Of course, you can go to patreon.com/Comic Conspiracy to kick us a few bucks. If you enjoyed this podcast, we greatly appreciate it. Mm-hmm. If you'd like to hear our previous episodes, go to comicconspiracypodcast.com, geekbox.net, and Apple Podcast app. You can find all our previous episodes there. Rate and review us. It always helps.
Ooh, if you're iTunes has the new thing, so we should do some more reviews.
No, thank you. If you're on, I like to see the reviews. I just don't have iTunes installed, so I can't read the old ones. If you are on YouTube, you can go to youtube.com/comicsconspiracy. We have all our episodes up there in audio format if you just like listening to stuff on YouTube for some reason. Comicsconspiracy.biz, that is our physical storefront. You can purchase comic books from us there. We do mail order. We do subscriptions to the Comic Hub app and website if you want to check that out at customer.comichub.com. Of course, choose Comics Conspiracy as your store. You can also just purchase books through our website. Yep. We ship them out a couple times a week. ConspiratorBrock.com. That's Brock's blog, video pull list, and unboxing video site. You can go check out his videos on there. Wanders in the Fourth Dimension podcast. That is Charlie's Doctor Who podcast. As we said last week, Charlie is done.
Charlie.
He is caught up with Doctor Who. The episodes will be airing in the next few months for all the episodes, but they are done recording all the new content.
Okay.
And all the old content. Okay. So if you want to hear them talk about every single episode of Doctor Who in chronological order, you can go to Wanderers in the Fourth Dimension podcast. And LeanneHill.com, that is my wife, Leanne. That is her. There's a link there to her Etsy store. You can purchase her artwork.
What is she working on now?
I haven't a clue.
Nothing seasonal?
You can also purchase all that through the store, and we have select prints on our website as well. We're in the process of slowly getting them up. I've just been bad about updating the art on them. I need to get all that loaded. All her prints are available on there. If you would like to follow us on Twitter, I'm Ryan Higgins. Ryan. Brock is Brock Sager. Toby is Toby XI. Charlie is Insanity in Chaos. The store is Comics Con Store. Oops, Kevin is that Kevin Sharp. I knew I skipped one. And please listen to the Geek Box. Myself and Justin Haywald hosted an episode last night. Ryan Scott's out of town, so we got to talk about some random crap. Talked about Black Friday. It's always fun. And, of course, our good friends over at the Manga Machinations podcast, which I've been on a few times. Please check those guys out. We appreciate all your support listening to this podcast. And we got a few interesting episodes coming up. We're going to do our end of the year talk. I know we're going to talk a lot of Watchmen. We're going to be skipping the last week of the month because we're all going to be gone. But, hey, that's all right. We're going to have a lot of good
the 17th of December is just going to be such a fun day.
It's going to be a big day. Humongous
what
week
time
for
are we
new
getting
comics.
Into work then? Is it 9?
As soon as I possibly can. Not looking forward to that day. All right, we're going to wrap up. Thank you guys all very much, and we'll catch you next week.